Hello and welcome to this video on the exact opposite of a Nobel Prize, the IgNoble Prizes. Nobel Prizes are 5 categories that more or less win $1 million if you are found to be worthy of it in that given year. The criteria by which it's defined is those who, during the preceding year, have conferred the greatest benefit to mankind. This is a rather large achievement by anyone's standards. When we say the exact opposite of this, you may think stupidity that warrants a Darwin Award. The fact this video is not on the Darwin Awards, but that it is a different topic to this video, should give away the distinction. This leads to the IgNoble Prizes. These are defined as a satiric prize awarded since 1991 to celebrate unusual or trivial achievements in scientific research. Each year, 10 awards are given out, and they're given out based on how much they not only make people laugh, but also make them think. They are, in a manner of speaking, an honour, just not an honour that is anywhere near the same level of prestige. They are, in other words, the weird, crazy, and wonderful. While we have recently spoken about this year's awards, there are many, and going back to 1991, we've picked out just a few that may be of interest to you. We'll begin with one that we noted in particular. It's a relatively recent award from 2009. It's the work of Burtenshaw and Rawlinson. They were given their award for their work in veterinary medicine by demonstrating that if you give a cow a name, it may produce up to 5% more milk than cows without names. They also noted that there is a relatively narrow window of time, or more accurately, a very specific window of time, when, with enough extra attention and naming, they will produce this more milk. Outside of that, it doesn't seem to make a difference. Again, this is a relatively small change, but the implications of it can be quite big if you begin to try and look at where else this might be applicable. Is there any relationship to things like meat production? Is it just the name? What about naming them makes them produce more milk? And other factors that will branch off from otherwise inconspicuous research that just seems odd. Going straight to the earliest days of the IgNoble Awards and straight to the gutter, we have the 1993 award to Nolan, Stilwell, and Sands Jr. Medical researchers for their research report titled Acute Management of the Zipper Entrapped Penis. Yes. It may seem odd, but there are various parts of the human body that if they do become entrapped, whether it's the penis, digits, or anything else, can be quite difficult to both extricate from the site where it's been trapped, but also to try and recover some of the damaged areas. The simple reality in some cases, damage is beyond recovery, and no matter what surgery you do, there will be no recovery of any movement, use, or function. Odd case studies like this can be useful, if only because they are so unusual, or at least no one writes about them. Jumping forward a few years to 1996, and the Public Health Award to Kleist and Moy. Theirs is another case report, or more accurately medical report, but this time on STDs. The case report being titled Transmission of Gonorrhea Through an Inflatable Doll. While in 1996, the inflatable doll may have been a more relatable example, in the next few years it's likely that sex robots, for instance, may also pose a similar vector of transmission. And again, referring back to the weird and unusual case studies that simply aren't otherwise written about, this could be useful in understanding other patterns of behavior and infection. Not only are we talking about the infection itself, but how it spreads, and following a disease as it moves from individual to individual, and how it gets there can be just as important as an understanding of the disease itself. There's also the 2000 Peace Prize. This was given to the British Royal Navy. They issued a slight change in their practice. Rather than using live ammunition in their cannons, they were instructed to shout out bang. This one we're not quite clear about. How exactly instructing soldiers, or more accurately sailors, to call out bang instead of firing a cannon because their budget had been cut, not because they actually had any particular desire to change their practices, doesn't quite fit with this. In 2002, the physics prize given to Leich from Germany for demonstrating that beer froth will obey the mathematical law of exponential decay. By itself, this may not sound very interesting or important, but amongst other things, you need to look at the fact that fluids behave in a truly bizarre manner, and beer froth acts somewhere between a variety of different states. Being able to model that is impressive and useful. Further to that, most people like beer, so it ties into a lot of different general interests. Even now, with the difficulties in modeling the behavior of fluids and various other states of matter, any model that builds on that, even if it's done in a particularly weird and niche example, is going to add to the body of knowledge, and oftentimes, when you're modeling something, it's far easier to customize or modify existing methods than it is to try and build something from the ground up. 2003's research in chemistry follows a similar sort of idea. It was presented to Hirose of Japan for their investigation of why a bronze statue did not attract pigeons. It turns out the bronze statue had a surprisingly large amount of arsenic in it, and as such, pigeons didn't go near it. Now, in the modern built environment, depending on where you are, you may or may not notice that there's various oddities to the way the environment has been changed, particularly in public areas. Many of these changes are made primarily to try and deter people from loitering. Homeless camps, people trying to simply lounge and laze about. There are plenty of reasons why they do this, some more morally or ethically acceptable than others. Then you have animal behaviors as well, the inclusion of pigeon or other bird deterrence devices on top of light posts, in high spaces in public buildings, all these sorts of things. This is the sort of research that early on gives researchers some idea of not only what's going on, but ways they could possibly implement it. It also explains something weird, why one particular statue doesn't have pigeon poo covering it. 2004's Psychology Award was given to Simons and Chabris of Harvard University. Their research is something that if you have ever been through a psychology class, you may have seen for yourself. That is, that when people are paying attention to one thing, and paying very close attention to that, they will overlook something else, even if that something else is far more pressing and interesting. For example, a woman in a gorilla suit. This is again one of those things where you can almost think of it like a magic trick. When you're so busy focusing on one thing, you don't see the other, despite the fact that it may be obvious, or too easy to notice. The nut in a shell game is a perfect example of this. As such, you can see how a prize like that could be awarded for what it is, and how that research could be useful in figuring out, in some cases, how to distract people, in other cases, how to keep their attention on something even if there are other things going on. The same year, there was also a prize for public health which may be of interest. This was given to Clark, and what they were investigating was whether or not the 5-second rule is real. The 5-second rule being that if you drop food on the ground, you have 5 seconds to pick it up and eat it, and if you do so in that time frame, whether or not it's safe. This being a relatively well-known, if not common, myth of sorts. We've previously touched on some of the more common food myths that are out there, and this was one of them. It very much depends on what you're dropping and what surface you're dropping it on. That research very much focused on whether or not you could transmit bacteria from one surface to another and the sort of timeframes in which it would occur. On a simple one-off basis of exposure for a few seconds by a single individual, it's not very useful. But when we're talking about things like industrial production, large-scale food health and safety, things like that, this gets more interesting and useful. 2006 was given for ornithology to Schwab and May. Their research was looking at woodpeckers, and specifically why woodpeckers don't get headaches when they hit their head on a tree trying to get to the bugs and other desirables inside of it. Again, by itself, not much use, but then you need to start looking at things like the very high incidence of brain damage amongst football players, boxers, and other athletes who engage in activities that will otherwise lead to brain damage, and often by some of the very same mechanisms by which woodpeckers should be getting headaches and brain damage. Already you can see how some of these have transitioned from very esoteric and weird ways of doing what they do to very, very direct relationships. 2007's Peace Prize is one that doesn't really fit into either of these, and it's the United States Air Force research into a gay bomb. The idea was that if the Air Force could somehow or other cause soldiers to become sexually attracted to each other, they would, amongst other things, be either otherwise occupied or unwilling to fight. In either case, the Air Force would have an infinitely easier time doing their job. As you can imagine, with something like that, it didn't go very far or very well. However, modifications of behaviors via chemistry has been going on for a very long time, so this is not exactly a new line of research. Just consider what happened with MKUltra. Jumping forward quite a few years to 2011, to the mayor of Vilnius, Lithuania. What they found was that they could solve the issue of illegally parked luxury cars by taking a BTR-60 and running them over. The BTR-60 being an armoured personnel carrier weighing many tons more than just about every luxury car out there, and turning it into a pancake. We're not quite sure that this could be described as research, but they did get an award for it, so again, we can look at what's happening and just whether or not there is something you could think about with this. For example, which will hurt someone more, the loss of their property or receiving a very expensive ticket? It would appear that it's the loss of property rather than the loss of money when it comes to running them over with a armoured car. Our last example comes from 2012 and is a prize for anatomy from Dewal and Pocconi. They found that chimpanzees can identify other chimpanzees as an individual from a photograph of their buttocks. Somehow or other, chimpanzees can identify each other by photographs of their anogenital region. Admittedly, chimpanzees do somewhat more actively use this region for identification purposes in various ways, and to a certain extent it is arguable that humans do the same. Many people claim to be able to identify someone almost perfectly from behind. Exactly what they're identifying, whether it's shape of individuals or prominent features, will vary, but this may well be one of them. How the chimpanzees did this is not clear from the award itself, but it's interesting to see that ours is not the only species that can rely on an image of another, even if it's not that other's face, to be able to figure out who they are. These are just a small sample of the many IgNoble prizes. While they may seem small, hopefully you can see how each has applications beyond the scope of what it is the award is given for. The thing that was awarded is obviously somewhat entertaining, and admittedly, none of these are on par with a Nobel Prize, but they are ultimately worthwhile but unusual endeavours that could, later on, be either the initial building blocks or the clues for other research that allows it to move forward in either an unexpected or weird way that could be the solution required. Or they could just be an interesting and unusual anecdote in the footnotes of history. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions that you have below.